Wear a raincoat, because it's about to be a bloodbath. What is up, guys? Welcome to my review of Evil Dead Rise, the newest and fifth installment in the Evil Dead franchise. And for somebody who is absolutely a casual fan of this franchise, I have to appreciate the fact that even before I saw Evil Dead Rise, this is among the most consistent of horror franchises. Scream, I used to say Child's Play, and Evil Dead are probably the ones that you can always walk in expecting a certain level of quality and pretty much always get it. There was a lot of talk about this movie a few years ago, and they were going to be putting it on HBO Max, and then all the test screenings started getting a lot of really high praise, and they decided to give it a full theatrical run, and thank God that they did, because this is definitely the type of movie you want to see in the theaters if you're a fan of Evil Dead. And I have heard nothing but great things about this for the past couple of weeks from those that were fortunate enough to see it before I got a chance to. So I've been very hyped, very pumped up to check this thing out. I was a massive fan of the Evil Dead Fede Alvarez movie in 2013. And I thought from the trailer, this looks like to be along those same lines of just absolutely fucked up, brutal, and bloody. So essentially what this movie does is it takes that isolation of the cabin in the woods concept from the previous Evil Dead films and moves it over to an inner city high-rise apartment, going for that same exact isolation but with a very different flair to it. Also, the head of the deadite demonic presence in this film is the mother, and all of the potential victims are her children and her sister. So a little bit more personal, maybe a little higher stakes, because a lot of us don't like to see kids get hurt, especially in the gratuitous ways we're used to seeing people get hurt in an Evil Dead film. So with all that setup, with all that hype, with all that anticipation, did Evil Dead Rise deliver the bloody, carnage-filled goodness? Really quick before we dive into the positives and negatives of this film, if you too find yourself isolated in a high-rise apartment with some demonic presence going on, you might want to be stocked up on some delicious ready-to-heat meals from Factor, the sponsor of today's video. As many of you know, so far in 2023, I've made significant life changes with a better diet, more gym time, and overall just a healthier lifestyle. And one of the biggest aids in my newer lifestyle changes has been Factor meals. Factor takes the guesswork out of grocery shopping and meal prep by delivering hassle-free prepared foods to make sure that you always have something nutritious on hand. One of the biggest pitfalls that I would constantly fall into is getting fatigued from long editing and recording sessions and just resulting to getting takeout fast food, following that up with a high-calorie, sugar-filled drink. And Factor has allowed me to stop falling into that trap because not only are they consistently cheaper, but they are faster than takeout, going from the fridge to your face in about 2 minutes. And Factor has also allowed me to stick to a healthier diet because it keeps me from having food fatigue, because there are so many options available that you will never get sick of eating the same thing over and over again. For example, I am an absolute fanatic of Tex-Mex food, and the Factor meals option allows me to eat the food that I love while also maintaining a low-calorie diet and, if needed, a keto-friendly diet. So if you're looking to take the hassle out of healthy eating, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code Cody Leach 50 to get 50% off of your first Factor box. That's 50% off by using the code Cody Leach 50 at the link in the video description or going to factor75.com. And thank you, Factor, for partnering with me on today's sponsorship. Starting off with the positives, I really enjoyed the change of setting for this film. Now, I love the cabin in the woods concept, and few franchises do it as well as Evil Dead, but you get a lot of the same things that we love that cabin in the woods setting for, with a very different flavor, very different visual to it. So now height and a lack of elevator and stairs are kind of your reasons to be isolated in this environment, the things that are preventing you from getting away from the evil. You have modern technology and electricity and household appliances and things that are all laying around to help you and really fucking hurt you. And I enjoyed the fact that this movie delivered everything that you go to an Evil Dead film for, everything that you expect an Evil Dead film to deliver, but in a very different way. And that's hard for a franchise that has been going on for like 40 years at this point, to introduce something so different and yet deliver everything that you want.
You don't look so good, Mom.
Nothing a big old kiss from you won't fix.
Speaking of delivering the goods, this is a gory, brutal, blood-filled movie. It's not quite as brutal as the 2013 film, I will set that expectation, but it's certainly trying to be. It is certainly more in the vein of that Fede Alvarez film than the previous 3 Evil Dead films. There's not so much of a slapstick tone here. There's a little bit of an uncomfortable humor here and there with some of the kills and some of the gratuitousness, but it's definitely going for more of that gore, shock value, just splatterfest style that the 2013 film did, and I think they did a hell of a job at delivering that. Just as soon as you think that you've seen the gnarliest thing the movie's going to deliver, they usually one-up themselves within about 15 minutes. It's comedically over the top with the blood and the bile and vomit and all of the liquids that are coming out of all of our victims and deadites. There is a lot of really painful looking things going on with these characters. There's some really gnarly creature designs that come out by the end of the film that was a nice little addition to the Evil Dead family. And so if you come to an Evil Dead film for the carnage, which most of us do, that side of things is absolutely going to be a box that you will check happily. I really appreciated the fact this is not a film that relies on a lot of the modern horror tropes as far as jump scares and the same typical setups, the same typical sound design cues that let you know that you're about to have something jump out at you. This is more of an old school horror film, again, very similar to the 2013 film, that is going for tension, that's going for atmosphere, that's going for creepiness with a little bit of sound design with the voices and with just the physical things that characters are doing. You've seen a lot of it in the trailer with the way that the mom moves once that she is possessed, and it's really unnerving, especially when you watch this story through the lens of the children that is experiencing all of this. And as if being isolated in a building with a demon is not terrifying enough, when you think about the fact that it is betraying the comfort of a mother, it adds that extra level of ickiness.
Mom?
Mommy's with the maggots now.
And Alyssa Sutherland's performance as Ellie, the mom that is your main demonic entity in this movie, she was fucking awesome. Like, I knew from the trailer that she was going to be a big standout, and you see a lot of the bigger moments in the trailer, unfortunately, just a modern marketing, but there is a lot more that you don't see that the movie is kind of holding back, and all throughout the film, being that most of the runtime she is possessed, she finds all of these ways to physically do some really gnarly stuff, and the collaboration between her and the filmmakers to kind of create this demonic entity and the way that her mannerisms are going to be, the way that the cadence of her voice is going to be, open up now. It's very unnerving. It's very creepy. And for a franchise that we have seen a lot of different monsters, a lot of different forms of demonic possession in, they are continuing to find new ways to kind of spin that a bit and give you something different. And her performance, if anything, is the big standout for this one for me. And finally, I appreciated the fact that this movie was able to give little visual callbacks and Easter eggs and hints towards things of the past. That's always something that's fun for all of us longtime fans, but it doesn't rely on it, and it doesn't do it in a way to where they're just banking on nostalgia, getting you through the movie like a lot of modern films have seemed to do lately, where it's just a bunch of member berries and that's what they want you to take away from. They're very easily missed if you're not a big Evil Dead fan, and if you do miss them, you're not really having a gigantic void in your experience with this film. You can get through and experience everything they want you to with Evil Dead Rise and never pick up on any of those cues. But if you are a fan that happens to pick up on them throughout the film, it's just an extra little bit of goodness in your experience. Now, with all that being said, I think that Evil Dead Rise was a damn good addition to this franchise. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing it again, and I think that most Evil Dead fans will enjoy this film. I didn't love it. It wasn't a runaway victory for me, and one of the main reasons why is because they decided to focus on this family element in this film, to where the mother is the one being possessed and her children as well as her estranged sister are the ones that are having to deal with this situation and fight back and are slowly becoming victims of this demonic entity themselves. And there's two big issues that I have with the way that they decided to execute that particular story in this film. The first one is that I actually feel like we needed a little bit more humor in this. I think we needed a little bit more levity. Now, I like when a movie just goes brutal and unforgiving, and this film certainly does, but when you're dealing with children especially, and maybe this is just a me thing, I need some more moments of levity to be able to kind of enjoy some of the things that are happening here. I don't think they necessarily needed to lean like full Evil Dead 2 and full on slapstick, but there is moments of humor in this that definitely feel like Sam Raimi whispering an idea into the director's ear. I feel like we needed more of that, especially in the back half of the film, because once it hits this point about halfway through the film where it lets you know definitively, we don't have any rules or parameters and we are not fucking around, these kids are in deep shit. From that point forward, it's pretty brutal and it's pretty relentless, and there's not too much levity aside from this uncomfortable laugh of how extreme things are getting. And I personally would have enjoyed the movie overall a little more if there was a bit more of that old school Evil Dead humor in that second half. The second issue with this familial element that they bring in here is that typically Evil Dead films, you don't necessarily spend a whole lot of time or effort on character development. I mean, we feel like we know a lot about Ash because he's been a recurring character, but even going back to that original film, it's basically just random teenagers dropped into this situation and who's going to survive till the end. And they pretty much stuck with that formula all the way through to even 2013. Well, when you introduce a familial element like that, I feel like we needed to know this family more. I feel like I wanted to know more about the mom, and I wanted to know more about these kids, and I wanted to care about them more. I wanted to identify more with their family dynamic, and I never really got that from this. It felt a little bit empty on the character development. Even the main protagonist of the film, Beth, who is the estranged sister of the woman who is possessed, and we're introduced to the fact at the beginning of the film that she is reluctantly pregnant. And so the movie kind of becomes a bit of a journey for her of rising into this role of motherhood and protecting these kids, and I guess realizing within herself that she can be a mom, which, is fine. That's good enough for a small story for that character, but I still don't feel like I know enough about her. Like, why is she reserved about being a mom? Why do I need to care about whether or not she feels like she can be a mom or not? Something was missing in these characters for me. And that's really the only issues that I had with the film, and I might be in the minority on that one. I don't know many people that would go to an Evil Dead film and their priority would be characters, but that's always my priority when I walk into a film, story and characters. And so while a lot of the previous Evil Dead films, I never really got bugged by the fact that there was not a lot of focus and a lot of development with the characters, because this one was that family dynamic, I felt like they needed to change that a little bit, and they did not. So you'll know yourself whether or not that's going to bother you or not. It bugged me. So overall, guys, this was another solid addition to the Evil Dead franchise. If you're a horror fan, especially an Evil Dead fan, it's a must-watch in theaters because it's a very blood-soaked good time. If you're somebody that does not get into gratuitous gore or the extreme body dismemberment that Evil Dead is known for, then you already know you're not the core audience for this film, and you didn't need to hear me tell you that. But if you are the core audience, the target audience for this franchise, I think most of you will be happy with this. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all of my 2023 new release reviews so far, and I'm also going to put a playlist up here of my Evil Dead reviews, the previous 4 films, so check those out as well. Like and share and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future, including an upcoming Evil Dead ranking. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.